Hi, my name is Catherine Bennett and welcome to the Cyber Chat studio. In this episode, I'm joined by the legend that is Courtney Williams, email resilience specialist at Bytes. So Courtney is here to talk today about Bytes Technology Group and the specialist services that they offer. But I'm also intrigued to find out a little bit more about Courtney's talents outside of work. Great to have you in the studio today. I'm really looking forward to today's session. How are you? And welcome along.
Thanks, Catherine. Yes, I'm fantastic, thank you. Yeah, I've been told before, you never say I'm good or like I'm great. You've got to be emphatic with it, and that's why I am today. Yeah. Thank you for
Absolutely.
having me.
You're welcome. So before I go into the tech, a little bit more about the seriousness, I want to learn a little bit more about you, as I'm sure everybody else does. What I'd really like to understand, I know you're a lover of music. I'm going to give you a little bit of a test before we actually go into some of the questions. But in memory of the recent Irish singer Sinead O'Connor, nothing compares to you. Go for it. What are the next couple of words?
Nothing compares. Nothing compares to you.
Oh, amazing. And you even sung it. That is, I don't think I've had anybody sing so far. So that was perfect. And it was spot on with the lyrics. So 100 points to yourself. So just going into that in terms of a lover of music, tell us, what is your favourite song and or artist?
Oh, that is a tricky one. My favorite karaoke song, probably No Diggity by Blackstreet, because it's got a little bit of everything that I love. It's got the rap in there where I sometimes do my own thing, and then it's got the R&B version where I can bring out the smooth, sultry tones. My favorite song ever, however, and this also something that people don't know about me, is probably my dad's song. So my dad was a Motown singer back in the 60s and 70s. And he had a number one over here called Miss Grace. And the group was called The Times. And recently I was just over in America, actually, and they've just had a plaque unveiled on the Philadelphia Walk of Fame, which was mind-blowing to see, to be honest.
That is incredible. It's so interesting, the amount of people that kind of both of us speak to, and we don't know enough about people and their background and family and so on. So that's incredible. So did he kind of get you into music, I guess, and your love of it? And
Yeah, he definitely did. So growing up, I often had a lot of different artists from that era around my house. So we had the likes of Edwin Starr, who sung War. Anyone who's seen Rush Hour, the scene where they're dancing outside the car, that's War. We had the Drifters. Even one of the ladies from ABBA came round to my house when I was 6 years old. So I don't really remember her. But yeah, that's definitely where the love came from, and I was always singing from a young age, and that sort of carried on through to now, and long may it continue.
That's a brilliant claim to fame. So I guess you've answered one of my questions. What do we not know about you? But I guess what do you like to do outside of work? And I'm not sure whether there's a little bit of a theme there with kind of singing and so on. But yeah, would love to know. What do you do outside of work, really?
Oh yeah, there's definitely a theme there. So I'm very much a creative heart. So it's the singing, it's the dancing, it's the acting as well. So I've always wanted to act, and ever since I was young at school, wanted to go to drama school, but the mum was like, "You've got to go to university, get a degree." So I did that, and then when the pandemic happened, I was like, well, what can I do in my free time? I got on online and did some screen acting courses, and then in my own time, I've been doing some short films, sort of working up a show reel, and that's been my love, obviously alongside the music as well, which you can see on like my spoken word LinkedIn post and stuff like that. And a lot of the enablement that I do here is through a musical or artsy form, which I think really gets through to the sales team rather than a PowerPoint presentation.
I think it resonates a bit better, doesn't it, than just kind of, we see so many PowerPoints, presentations from different bits and people. And I think if you're that little bit more creative on it, I think it resonates with people, and they listen and they learn and they acknowledge it. So does that mean we'll kind of see you on the screen in the next sort of couple of years, or in the future? I'll be looking and thinking, I'm sure. Yeah.
But that's what I'm hoping for. Like, as much as I really love cybersecurity, and obviously that's why I'm here today, and I wouldn't be here without it. But I do have that passion to take things in the acting sphere a bit further as well. So yeah, I'm building up to hopefully doing some feature films and get my teeth stuck into it a bit more. So yeah, fingers
Amazing.
crossed.
So I guess that leads me on to my next question then. Where do you see yourself in the next sort of 5 to 10 years? What's your kind of long-term goal or dream?
Oh, the long-term goal and dream would probably be to be in a feature film as a lead actor. That would be great. But just in general, being happy in my life and sort of being comfortable, because the thing is, there's a lot of people out there who don't have the luxury to think about where they're going to be in the 5 to 10 years. They're thinking about where they're going to be in the next 2 days. And
Yeah,
luckily, I'm in a position where I can think about my future, and I'll be a successful actor and a successful cybersecurity expert.
definitely.
I want to run them parallel into each.
I think sometimes, there's so much pressure on a young person trying to build out their career before they even know what's out there or before they even know what they want to do. So sometimes, it takes a few years to really get into something and then go, I really enjoy doing that. Or actually, it's been great. It's been a brilliant experience, but actually, I'm not so keen on that. And I think I'm going to take this route. So, yeah,
Yeah.
totally get that. So tell us a little bit. Obviously, we know a little bit more about yourself now, but tell us a little bit about your current role, what you do, and a little bit about Bytes and obviously what they do.
Yeah. So as you know, I'm an email resilience specialist here at Bytes. So I work very closely to not only enable the sales team here to understand email and what we call the key pillars of email resilience. So that's talking about the actual email security through to DMARC, security awareness training, archiving, for example. So there's lots of pillars, and that's why we don't just call it email security. And that's why the enablement that I do with both spoken word, songs that we make up with Henry, that's why I think they really resonate with the team. But I also have to take that out to our customers as well and understand their bespoke needs for their organization. So we offer such things as free email resilience workshops where we will take customers through the market to help them understand what we're seeing and what we're hearing from our customers, but also what research that we've done about differing technologies that can help boost their security posture within the business. Outside of potentially my sphere, we have a lot of thought leadership sort of events and webinars that Bytes host. We've got a number of different cyber evangelists within the team as well, whose job is to educate us and educate our customers on the new evolving threats from across all the pillars: endpoint, email, vulnerability, and risk. And then more in-house as well, we've got services such as 24/7 managed SOC. We've got a CREST certified penetration testing company and solution that we can offer to our customers, and much more, from like security services to cyber consulting. So people, when they think of Bytes, they tend to think of Microsoft, as we do go hand in hand. We are Microsoft's leading partner in the UK, but we are much more than that. We are fully credible in a number of different areas, from cybersecurity to modern workplace, hybrid infrastructure, for example. So that's us.
That's in a nutshell. And do you know what? I think sometimes, when I say we, I mean, obviously Proofpoint have exactly the same thing. A lot of people tend to see us as just an email specialist. But actually, when they dive down and actually look at all the kind of the solutions that we do, they realize, oh, you're so much more. So in a kind of the same sense of Bytes being huge Microsoft house. Well, actually, yes, that's kind of the bread and the butter, and that's where your history has come from. But there's so much more you do. When we start to look at obviously the change in buying cycles. So as an example, I'm not saying all salespeople do this, but a lot of salespeople say, "Oh, it's got a little bit technical here. I'm going to pass you over to my specialist," and they will yourself and your team in. How do you keep a track of what technology to talk about? What you must have so many questions fired at you from a customer. How do you kind of keep up to date with all that tech and solutions and products, etc.?
I suppose it's constant research. It's always searching through like LinkedIn, searching through the web, going on deep dives of new technology. And when you hear a name, don't just take the name in. Go and do your research on it and find out what their USPs are. Why are people talking about them? And luckily enough, the cyber evangelists that I mentioned, they that is their main job of going out and researching all the differing technologies. And we have around 65 specialists in the security team from across all pillars, and we collate and we share information as well. So if someone reads something interesting about a new emerging threat or a new emerging technology, they pass it on to the team. We all have a read, and then by the time that everyone's done that, there's another threat actor that people are keen to learn about. So I think it's just having that team and everyone working collaboratively, which seems to be the buzzword of the
Yeah.
last couple of years, especially with obviously remote working. But a
Yeah.
lot of the research I do on my own as well, because I find it interesting. Cybersecurity is something that doesn't really sit still. You're not going to just have the same technologies and the same
Yeah.
threats. And I think that's why I like cybersecurity so much as well, because every conversation is different, and every week there's a new threat or there's something new in the news
Yeah.
that
A new challenge.
a new challenge, yeah. And these are challenges that our customers are facing as well. So we need to be able to understand what has happened,
Yeah,
and then relay that in a way where we can help customers make the right decisions for themselves as well.
absolutely. So was cybersecurity, something that you always wanted to go into? How did you actually start your journey in the industry? A lot of people kind of just fall into it, or they kind of work their way around. But what was the kind of the start of your journey?
So I've been in the IT industry for about 8 or so years now, and that was typically working in an account management role, sort of being a jack of all trades, understanding a little bit about everything.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until 2020, was it 2020? No, that was the
So more-
heart of the pandemic. It was the 2021. And I decided that I wanted to change from account management, and I wanted to get into security because that's the field that I was interested in, and that is also where a lot of the interesting conversations that I had in my account management days were occurring.
Yeah.
So I reached out to a friend who I knew worked for Bytes, who got me in touch with a guy called Steve. Steve, who works in the Reading office with me, who is one of the divisional directors.
Yeah.
And Steve originally interviewed me as an account manager, and I
On the
think I
job
did.
side.
Yeah, I think I did okay. But then Steve relayed back to my friend here that he thought I would be better for a specialist role. And that's when they put me in touch with Mark Palmer and Luke Kiernan, and I got an interview for them. So I didn't really know too much about email in particular. So
Yeah.
luckily I've got a friend who works for another organization as a network security specialist who sort of sat me down, went through a security 101, helped me with my slides that I needed for the presentation, and I obviously did it to him, and he told me, okay, you can do this bit
Yeah.
better. You can mention the I think it was the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack, and
It's not what you know, it's who you know sometimes, isn't it? Yeah.
it is. So yeah, thank you, Jeffs, and thank you, Nick, for sitting through those presentations with me. But yeah, then I interviewed with Bytes twice, and they saw me as a moldable character, someone that they could really mold into what they needed. But they also allowed me to express myself in ways that I've not been able to in my past roles. And that was my first foray into email resilience, and since then I've been wanting to travel down the other paths as well, so doing CompTIA and doing the Cisco networking courses to understand the full breadth of cybersecurity outside of email.
Brilliant. And I think, there are so many different avenues that you can go down. When I did research recently, there was something like 4,500 organizations, just obviously vendors that cover security products. And there are about 35,000 organizations that provide a service or a, professional service of some description. So I think sometimes when people say, I want to go into cybersecurity or they're in cybersecurity, there's almost like this false pretense that you've got to learn everything about it and you've got to know everything. Whereas in actual fact, a lot of people kind of go down different routes or different specialisms to really, get a feel for what they actually want to do and what they want to specialize in. So, every reseller out there is completely different. They have their own USPs. What do you like about, Bytes? Is it the culture? Is it the kind of the tech? Is it the vendorship? Or perhaps maybe it's a mixture of all of them, really. But what kind of, a lot of people stay at Bytes for a long time. There's got to be a reason why.
Yeah, and I do think that it's the culture, it's the people. That there is a saying at Bytes, we grow great people. So
Like
so our
that.
sales director Rich, he loves to open the sales meetings with that phrase. It's always in the presentations, and I believe it is true. I've been here coming up 3 years, and I'm still very much in the honeymoon phase, which doesn't happen in a lot of roles, and I do think that is because of the people. They have great people here who are very knowledgeable, but also they're hardworking, and they're also just people that you can get along with as well, and people who don't like kick up a fuss or anything. Just nice to work with. Not saying that the people who I've worked with in the past haven't been like that, but I think it definitely helps create a nice working atmosphere. And it's also the technology as well. So Bytes are one of the powerhouse resellers within the UK, and that certainly helps as well. And it's the different solutions that we can provide to our customers as well, and the reputation that they've built over the last 40 years as well is obviously well placed. And
Absolutely.
it's a mix, and then obviously the partners come into the fold. So like yourself, like it's just great working with all these different people and creating these relationships that I know that will stay for a very, very long time in my life.
Brilliant. So one of the questions that I have now, a little bit like yourself, I've been in the industry a long, long time. And things have changed dramatically over the years. I mean, if we look at cyber threats just on their own now, organizations face something like 2,200 threats every single day. So, it's a lot more aggressive. There are a lot more technology solutions out there. Have you seen a big change in the way that obviously, you're dealing with customers to now compared to obviously many years before? If I go back, gosh, and this is probably about 10 years now, it used to be somebody liked a technology solution. They had a quick look at it, fit a purpose, they bought it. Now we're tending to see a lot more tender documentation, comparison of products. It's more aggressive. People want to know a little bit more in terms of budget. What sort of changes have you seen from obviously when you started in your career, versus now in terms of obviously speaking to customers and prospects?
Yeah, I think the sales cycle has definitely changed. Like you said previously, it was like they liked the technology. They were like, "This fits our organization. Let's go ahead and buy it." However, I think with the emergence of new technologies out there, there's different ways of doing everything. So, for example, talking about email, you can change your MX records, or you can now use an API-based solution which utilizes machine learning and natural language processing. And you think about that from the endpoint. There's XDR, MDR, for example, and there's, I think, customers have to do much more research nowadays than they had to previously, when there were maybe only one or two techs for each solution. So the sales cycle was very quick. This time they want to analyze. They've got whole teams of researchers out there who are going out, and that's purely their job, to understand all these different technologies and how they can help boost their security postures. You've got the emergence of zero trust philosophy as well, which 10 years ago wasn't really a thing, because everyone worked within the perimeter of the office, and now people are remote working because of the pandemic everywhere. So you've got to extend the same security policies out to them. So I think the pandemic was a catalyst for change within security as a whole. But I also think that maybe back in the day there wasn't as much of an emphasis on security. There wasn't necessarily GDPR fines, example, regulations, which I think has made everyone focus and sharpen their tools on security to make sure that they don't get breached, that they don't get a massive fine. So I think all those things have contributed to people being more aware of what tools they put in, and taking maybe a little bit of a longer time to come up with the ideal solution for them.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely changed the way I think people buy and the way that people see technology. One of the things, obviously, we've worked together for a little while now. I definitely know, obviously, working with yourself, that people buy from people, as well as obviously the knowledge and the experience you have. And one of the things, I remember going back, obviously I'm a lot older than yourself, but I remember going back many moons ago, and I won't mention the company name, but one of the CISOs there, I was talking about technology, and I was talking about the ways that we can solve problems with. For the full hour, he sat there with his arms folded, no facial expression. I thought the meeting had gone horribly wrong, that he wasn't going to buy, and I walked out thinking, gosh, he's not going to be a customer of mine. But I went back to him and I said, look, I promised you I'd come back to you with these things are the things that I think are important. This is how I can help you. And from that moment on, he basically said that he was testing me, and he was testing, obviously, my knowledge, my experience, and how I work with people. From then on, I still talk to him now, 10 years later on. We kind of have a little bit of a giggle. Test your knowledge, doesn't it? And your patience. And
Yeah, because they either don't give you very much at all to work with. It's very yes, no answers, and you have to tailor the whole conversation around trying to wean out enough information from their brief answers, so that you can go back with a solution that will work. When we went to the Partner Connect with yourself, Catherine, the other day, there was a really great saying, and I've weaved it into my narrative now, and it's like, Microsoft is like the new build houses. Every single one has the same lock, it's got the same garage, it's got the same windows. If a burglar goes and breaks into one of those houses, it knows how to get into all the other houses. Whereas if you've got a layered technology approach and you sit a proof point on top of your Microsoft, that's like having bars on the windows. It's like having an attack dog waiting, ready for the burglar to come in. A burglar is going to be like, do you know what? I'm just going to focus on the easier house down the road. And I think that's a great saying, and it's something that I try to relate to my customers in that way as well.
Yeah, and it is challenging, because I think, if I take the analogy of a car salesperson, generally they know one particular brand or one particular model really well, and they understand all the questions that they're about to ask. I think in our kind of line of industry, there are so many questions that people fire at us, and it's knowing what to come back with, what the right answer is. Sometimes we don't know. It's so rapidly changing that it's really difficult to kind of keep on top of all of those questions all the time and actually going back with something. And I think a lot of the time, vendors are very good at that. They're kind of always, we're the best thing since sliced bread. We do, the leading technology. We do this, we do that. And a lot of the time, multiple vendors come back with exactly the same messaging. And I think it's what does one thing that I think obviously Bytes is really good at is being quite vendor agnostic, going in and actually looking at the customer and saying, well, what are your requirements? What are your needs? How do we find a solution that fits that? And then coming up with something in the back of it. So I guess my next thing as well is just to kind of show that expertise. I know that Bytes have recently won quite a few different awards. I think that shows obviously the expertise and the kind of the strength of the people behind it. Can you tell us a little bit more, perhaps maybe about some of the awards you've recently won, and I guess hopefully some of the awards that you're kind of aiming for next year as well?
Yeah, so us personally as an email resilience team, we just won the Proofpoint Specialist Sales team at your recent Partner Connect. So yeah, so that was lovely and a surprise. We were a Women in Diversity in the Channel Awards finalist. We've won multiple Microsoft awards, so Global Operational Excellence Partner of the Year. That's a mouthful, isn't it? Last year, Bytes are officially a great place to work, 2023. On a personal note as well, I don't know if I can say it here, but I was two-time Mimecast Outstanding Partner of the Year as well. So
Brilliant. And again, it
yeah,
shows your expertise there, doesn't it? The effort that you've put in, the training and so on. And I suppose probably my last question to yourself is, um, so many of the companies that we deal with are unique in their own certain way. We do have, for example, certain regulations that address different industries, like for example, finance and hospitality, retail, public sector, and so on. But I think it's quite important as a reseller to have that expertise in some of the areas, because sometimes they do have similarities, and even though every business is separate. So I guess, from a Bytes point of view as well, how do you kind of manage the challenges of each individual industry? So, for example, do you have like a public sector specific arm? Do you have different, industries that are people are vertically aligned to? How does that kind of work from a Bytes perspective?
yeah. So we have a public sector team who own the public sector.
Frameworks, isn't there? I mean, around public sector, there's frameworks, there's all sorts of different, things that obviously have to be adhered to. So I guess from a public sector point of view, it's having a team that know that kind of piece of the industry inside and out.
Yeah, and it's not just the one team either. It's about three different teams as well who divide that by the NHS. They've got housing, and then they've also got charities as well. So they are divided into certain subsections. But we've got a channel team as well. But the account managers here don't necessarily have particular verticals that they've got to work within. They just have customers that they might have worked with in the past that they take on, and it's obviously the relationships that they build as well.
Yeah.
So the rest of the corporate teams are just purely focused on whatever vertical they want,
Yeah. And
whatever
that's
customers that they want to work with.
And that's nice. I think, we, a lot of the time, I know that there's quite a few regulations coming around things like, retail or, the payment card industry, those sort of things. But I think also taking each business on its own merit and what their requirements are, because I think you've got so many sort of heads of security or CISOs or CTOs that come in. They have a different network, they have a different structure to understand with. Sometimes they've made acquisitions, sometimes they have different preference in terms of technology. So whilst it's good having an understanding of, say, like a retail or finance or any of those areas, every business kind of needs to be taken on its own merit, and it's almost like building blocks. What have we got to play with, and what do we build on top of? What do you like, what don't you like, who do we choose, and so on. So no, that's been really interesting. So is there anything that you would also like to kind of tell the listeners or viewers in terms of either Bytes or yourself? I just have one last question before we disappear.
I would just say to the viewers, make sure that you tune into the rest of these podcasts as well, because they are very, very, very interesting and enlightening as well. But yeah, I would just like to say thank you, Catherine, for your time. Really appreciate you investing into me as well, and investing into Bytes. You've obviously done a lot for Bytes, and long may the relationship continue. But apart from that, no, thank you to listeners, and take care.
And I did actually pay him to say that, so thank you.
Yeah. I'm walking out with a loaded wallet right now, but
Absolutely. Well, I'm hoping that you will join us again for one of our future podcasts. Thank you again. It's been really insightful. Like I said, it's working in an industry where there is so much to learn and so much to cover. So it's been really, really insightful. Thank you for your time, and hopefully we will have you on a future podcast as well.
yeah, sounds good.
Brilliant.
Thanks, Catherine.
Thanks again. Cheers. Bye-bye.